That wasn't you. That was me.
Oh, good morning.
I know it just changed on its own.
Oh, good morning and welcome to your daily Gameface. I am Dr. Kim Lannon, and I was just texting a client back, and you were pointing. I could hear you going, ooh, ooh. I was like, what's going on? I wasn't ready.
I have pushed so many wrong buttons this week.
Well,
Not on my game.
Well,
metaphorically.
I was just going to say, you
literally.
pushed a lot of wrong buttons this week. Just this week? Wow. Metaphorically and literally.
Yeah.
There's Lou pushing the wrong buttons.
Yep.
I walk in this morning, you're got something wrong. You're blaming me for pushing the show back. I'm sorry. I have the cute little Rocky the Rock Star, and he had to be seen by his people as we came through the entire building.
Excuse me. Despite the legitimacy of it, I did not blame you for pushing the show back. I just said I pushed the show back and something went awry.
You said I had to push the show back, and you gave me a look.
No, I didn't. I was looking at the screen, which is what got you so upset.
You were looking at the screen because there was this big box that had this like warning sign on it.
Exactly.
And that was concerning to me since it's my show.
Yes. It's concerning to me too. I was trying to deal with it.
And I usually come in on cue with the music because I don't trust you anymore to point me in. And I had it in my head while I was texting on timing. And the next thing I know, I'm on the screen and you're going, oh, Kim.
It's my fault. That one was my fault.
Thank God my head was down. Yeah. I don't have any grays. Good morning. Oh God. Lou, are we going to survive today?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, geez.
Don't we always?
Well, last week was better. The week before, not so much. I'm still a little, but I've had a very good week. We won't go into it, but I've had a very good week.
Excellent.
Have you?
Well, yeah.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can talk about it at other times. You need therapy for this.
For what?
I don't know. Rocky's here.
I know. I saw.
Everyone.
We said hi.
I know. And every single person from the parking lot in had to stop and touch him. He's the most touched dog in the world.
The dog is so small.
I know.
My cats hunt things that size.
You know, cats who go outside die.
I don't put my cats outside as much as I want them to go outside.
You know, this is not, all my cat friends, Mary's, I don't even see if Mary's on here, but if Mary comes on, I'm going to tell her.
I house 2 cats. I'm doing my share.
Yeah. I didn't wear my shirt today. I have 2 shirts now.
2?
When I go away next week, I'm wearing them.
Yep.
They'll bring good chatter, I'm sure. Hey, I figure if everybody else can wear their crazy crap on them, I might as well wear something that makes sense. You like that one?
Yeah, sure.
Come on, Lou. You want to go? Let's go.
No, I don't want to go.
I know it's so.
I never want to go.
You really do, though. You so do.
I do, but I don't.
Well, you teeter. You're a teeterer.
I want to go when it's my show. I don't want to go when it's your show. I don't like stepping on your show.
Oh, does it make you feel guilty?
No.
Oh,
guilty, no.
Does it make you feel bad?
Stepping on your show?
Yeah.
It's your show.
I know. Well, then you should remember that.
I tried. You just dragged me into the whole thing.
Oh, there's a gaslight. It's your fault.
You dragged me into the whole thing. I tried to stay quiet.
Okay. Anyway,
yep.
So I'm excited, first of all, because this is going to sound so weird. I am going away. And I'm excited about that because I'm going away and I don't have to work, but I'm going to do the show. I'm going to try to do the show. Yeah. And it's going to be very interesting because I'm going to try to make it work because one of the main exciting things about this is I want to see if I can make this work from being way out of the country where I'm going to be.
Yep.
So I'm excited to
We
do
have
that.
Signal questions. So.
Well, we have some signaling issues. So we're going to see if it actually can work.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be fine.
I think so too.
I just have to find the right spot. Well, we're going to work on it. We're going to work the glitches out on Tuesday, right?
I'm going to try.
Oh, God.
What?
Well, because by Wednesday, it might be totally different.
I can't guarantee you what the signal's like down there. We're going to try it. We're going to give it a shot.
But I think on Tuesday when we try it, I'm going to be in a very different position in the world than on Wednesday. My position on Wednesday morning is going to be ground-based.
Oh, that I didn't know. Okay.
We'll
see. It's a wild card. We'll see.
Yeah, well, we're going to try.
Yep.
I think if we can get it to work on Tuesday, we'll be able to go on Wednesday. So if you don't have a show that's live on Wednesday, it's because I'm out in the middle of nowhere.
No signal.
And Lou will put something else up that has not been the previous 3 shows.
No. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Well, yeah, because we don't need to have that. That goes with the times. Anyway, so tune in next week to see if we can pull it off.
This surprises me about you.
What?
You're having all kinds of problems with the discussion.
I'm not having any problems. You're having problems with the discussion. I can go in a discussion all day long about it.
I don't have a problem with any of the last 3 shows.
Okay. I don't have a problem with them. I just think that, there's other shows. Not that I think they were great shows personally, but I also think that my listeners thought they were great shows because I got lots of good feedback on them.
Excellent.
But I think that, we have other shows. I think we should put one up on narcissism.
That would be plenty of those.
We've got some good ones.
Yeah.
So, okay. So moving along, I just have to say that John is going to be joining here somewhere. John is our dear friend Mike, who I won't completely identify out because it might embarrass him, but I doubt it will. But they were going to harass me on the show today, so I figured I'd just out it now. They're together up in the wilderness of no man's land because Mr. Mike was out in the dark without a headlamp, I think, and he slipped on a log the other night and he broke his ribs.
Oh.
So John is there.
Jeez.
John's like, can't embarrass me. No kidding. I wish. If he actually had embarrassment gene in him, that would be helpful. If he had guilt and shame and those tendencies existed, we would have difference. But John is with Mike because John and Mike are helping each other. But Mike did fall and hurt himself. So poor Mike.
Broke his ribs.
Well, I think
nothing more painful than
he
that.
bruised them, but the doctor saw an old break. But I really think he broke his ribs. But it said it's bruised. But he fell hard, and he's in hurting pain, and so he can't do his. He has a pig farm. And he has a lot of things that he has to do at his place of business, and so and he has children, and he has
and he has to breathe.
He has to breathe. He has to breathe. So John's breathing for him.
Yeah.
And helping him.
God.
So
that's a bad injury.
Yeah. So I didn't see it, but I can picture like dark sliding, slipping off of a log and then crashing on your ribs and just, and so if it's bruised, I said to him yesterday, I said, "Ooh, that's worse than a break. Cause that's going to take like 6 months."
Have you heard around our favorite places to walk and stuff? All the bear sightings?
So I was there this weekend.
Oh, wait.
And there were a lot of bear. I saw a lot of scat, bear scat.
Yeah.
And I could hear people, so I was in the loon, so I could hear people yelling from the gondola, "There's a bear, there's a bear." And I'm like, "Where's the bear?" But I knew there were bear. There's always bear around this time of year.
Yeah.
I see bear. I didn't see any this weekend, but I usually do. And they just run away. So,
but the state basically said maybe everyone should just lay off for a while.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of bear, which is lovely. I love bear. I mean, I don't want to go out to Montana like I did before and have to, that scares me. I had to carry the 2 things of bear spray and then I was constantly looking around me, and you have to make noise the whole time you're walking, and you have to carry a whistle, and you got your bear spray. And I'm like, this is not fun. And then I saw like a baby,
so I got invented treadmills.
I saw the leg of a baby elk with no body to it.
Ew.
So I knew the bear got it, and John was like so excited about it. I'm like, "Oh, this is terrible."
Did you hear the tips in the official announcement?
What?
The tips that the state put out if you have a bear encounter.
For New Hampshire?
Yeah.
No, I probably did, but I don't know. Tell me.
Don't run.
Well, no shit. Well, I always go, "Don't climb a tree," because guess what? They can climb.
Don't turn around.
Mm-mm.
Don't back away.
Mm-mm.
Just make yourself big.
Yes.
And the one that I thought was interesting
those are always the same ones. See, I grew up in
know.
Vermont. They used to climb. I had a big A-frame that I lived in Vermont on Okemo Mountain. And they used to come up on the back deck and sit on the back deck and look in the big picture windows. So it does not, bear do not faze me like other people like, "Oh my God." I'm like, Oh, they used to sit in my back deck with the raccoons.
But the big one was
That we
don't
let
drop
in the
your
house.
backpack.
Yeah, because of food.
I know, but you figure that
'Cause-
would get their attention.
Well, they
They go for the backpack.
Well, yeah, no, because no.
Okay. I just thought it was interesting.
Well, you know our
Hope I
favorite.
never get to use it.
You know our favorite place that we go to?
You just have to run faster.
No. Well, okay. Okay, first of all, let me go back to John's comment. But the first thing is, so you know our favorite place that we all go to?
Yep.
That's not your favorite place that I turned you on to that you love, and you still won't
Yes.
go to the restaurant. Just making sure we put that out there.
Yep.
And Janet, I hope you're listening.
Tried last time.
Yeah, whatever.
Yep.
I went there this weekend.
Not open on Monday.
You have been there on weekends
I know.
when
I know.
it's
I
open.
know.
Don't
I
give
just
me
said
that
last
crap.
time we tried.
So, but that favorite place?
Yeah.
Oh, the bear are plentiful right now around there.
Right around there.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep, that whole path.
Yep.
You know, that back path.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I saw lots of scat. Bear scat.
Okay. No, it's fine.
Okay, but there's tons. You know how they have tons of signs out right now too.
Yeah.
Usually there's just a here and there. They're everywhere signs.
I don't want to see a bear. I want to see a moose. I love bear. I have no problem with bear. I just don't want to see one personally.
They have, the guy that takes the daily evening big bus tour to go find moose. You can just chase him, and he gets really mad about it because he doesn't want you chasing because you didn't pay him the $60. But if you go out on 312,
do you know this guy?
Or 302, not 312, 302. I've met him. Yeah, why?
Are you friends?
I wouldn't say we're friends. I don't think he probably remembers me because
Okay.
on my tour I didn't see squat.
Who takes that tour?
Lots of people.
$60 to sit on a bus for 4 hours in the middle of the night.
Right, exactly. Well, I did, and that was stupid because I could see them on my own. This was years ago, but I still did. And that's when they used to say 98% sighting. We saw 4 last night or whatever. Now on the sign it says moose tour, period. Because there's no guarantee. And even the last time we chased him, which was a couple of years, we chased him and followed him because we had people up from Florida and we were like, want to go see some moose? And
see, I had that thought, but I didn't do it.
Oh God, we totally did.
Yeah.
And we got to see the back end of one. We saw an ass.
Okay.
We saw the ass of a very large
Moose.
moose. That's what we saw.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, where? And I'm like, where is it?
More than I've seen.
Yeah. So, but come out to Montana. I saw them. Like, I opened up my back door of my
God.
beautiful
I would
place,
love
and
that.
there was moose, elk. There was a fox, bear, grizzlies. I saw 2 grizzlies when we were there.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to mess with them.
Mm-mm. But people do. They do the stupid selfie thing.
I know. This is
like,
John's posting theme right now.
Oh yes, it's like
I'm laughing. I laugh every time.
He loves the stupidity. No offense to people, but seriously, the stupidity of do not take selfies with the bison and the grizzly bears standing 4 feet from them.
Yeah,
Like
they're idiots.
What are you doing? Where in your head do you think this is not going to go wrong? So the psychology of that. Okay, so I'm going to go back. So, it's Mike. Oh, it's Mike and John. He fell down, not off a cliff. Oh, well, not. Oh, it was off a cliff. Oh, okay, whatever.
Small fireworks.
What?
I carry small fireworks to scare my bears.
Well, so where Mike is, he has bears all the time.
I don't know if I want to freak out a bear.
Well, this is Mike.
Yeah.
Let me just put it that way. Mike, you haven't met Mike yet. You'll have to meet Mike.
What would you rather meet in the woods, a bear or a fisher cat?
A bear.
Yeah, I think I would too.
That wasn't even. I didn't have to. You didn't have to finish that before you got to cat. I was like fisher, bear.
Yeah.
Fisher cat will rip your face off.
Yep.
A bear will sort of entertain it and then usually walk away. Fisher cat won't.
Fisher cat will do it for sport.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, they will.
Fisher cats I've seen. Bear I haven't.
I have seen when I was walking Wachusett last year. I got a beautiful picture of a fisher cat up on the mountainside. It was beautiful. And everyone's like, "What is that?" I'm like, "It's a fisher cat." I have them in my backyard, so I'm very easily to point them out. And I know
You're lucky you lived to show the picture.
Thank you. Well, I think they're kind of afraid, and I was just going to say is scared. Oh my God.
Is Vermont coming out?
Oh my, hey now. Yep. We can't get there from here. Remember Daryl, and my other brother Daryl?
Daryl, yeah.
Uh-huh. Bob Newhart died.
I know.
That was very sad. We didn't talk about that.
I know.
Anyway.
That show was excellent.
I still love the song because I'm from Vermont and I just love that whole show. I could still watch that. You know how like one of my best friends watches Friends like ad nauseum. I can't do that because I do love Friends, but the Newhart show, the Bob Newhart, from Vermont. I
Yep.
love that show. It was so good. This is my brother Daryl. This is my brother Daryl. Oh my God, it was
There's
just
some
so
great
good.
moments in
God,
that
it was just it was great. Anyway, I digress. So Mike and John are together, and they're having an entertaining, good time while Mike nurses his injuries of falling.
I'm feeling for you, Mike. I'm feeling for you. It's a tough injury.
And this, I have to just say, since Mike's listening, this is like the second time that I've known of. I don't know of any other times, but there have probably been others. Within the past year, he's almost killed himself because he impaled himself with a tree. I'm sorry.
All you have to do is impale. That's all you need.
He had a tree, like, I think he broke his nose. He cut it. And
Oh God.
It's New Hampshire,
Yep.
And so he's almost died twice. I call it death because he's always by himself. He's always out in the deep woods, and no one's there to help him.
It's like the old memes. This is why women live longer than men.
3 years, 3 ER visits. Oh, I'm missing
That's not
one.
bad.
I'm missing one.
Yeah.
Tree smashed the face and broke nose. That's the one I'm talking about. Oh, I got a good picture on that one too.
Was he doing cutting the tree?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And it fell on his face. It was big too. I saw the log. It wasn't like a twig.
God.
Yep. I don't know what the other ER visit was. So yesterday
Mike's a man.
Yesterday was the ribs, then the smash face. Okay. So it brings me to my topic of today.
Yep.
Perseverance and resiliency. But I was going to do it in terms of the topic first of hello to the women's gymnastics team. Hello to the U.S. women's gymnastics team and Brazil. Like, talk about perseverance and resiliency.
Yes.
And the naysayers who were like telling Simone, you're too old, you shouldn't come back, blah, blah, blah. And also to all those people out there who I will remain named at this juncture until you force me to say who said it, but I don't need to, who have sat out there and said she was a quitter because she had mental health issues. I'm sorry, but given that this is my profession and I work with athletes in sports psychology and sports performance, 99% of all athleticism, including at the recreational level, is mental. And so therefore, if you have an issue in a very dangerous sport, like gymnastics could kill you, by the way, you could die at any second on anything you're doing in gymnastics. If you don't have your head right because you get lost where you're going or because you have so much stuff going on in your head and break your neck and become a quadriplegic or die, I'm sorry to the people that say that that's, that it's a wimp out and a cowardice move to take some time off. I'll take you out on the floor anytime and let's go and let's see how you do. Not you, but Jesus. So there were quite a few people that felt like that was a problem, and good for her for taking the mental health break and taking time for herself for a few years. And, and she's way older in gymnastics, but I was having this conversation over the weekend with someone about how gymnastics used to be, we didn't talk the whole way, but gymnastics used to be like, I retired essentially when I was 18, 19-ish, right? For full retirement. But I'd been doing it since I was born. And so I had a full career. I always say I had a full career before anyone ever had their first job, right? Because I did. And that's, I was on the national team and, it was a full-time job. That's what I did. And people don't really understand what the schedule and what it looks like to do that, and so people, yay, go USA. So the pressure that goes into a sport to be at that level, right? Or even at the recreational level, but I'm going to talk Olympics today or at higher levels. The amount of pressure that's on someone to produce and to be at a high performative rate at all times is off the charts. And I can talk about it firsthand because I can tell you all about it because I've been there. And for Simone and what happened to her in the last Olympics in Tokyo, when she stepped it back and everyone criticized her saying, oh, selfish, which happened, and they, selfish, and she wasn't there for the team. Meanwhile, the team did very well. She did it in sacrifice of her own self for the team because she knew she was going to kill the team because she started losing herself because she was getting the twisties. And I've talked about this briefly before, but the twisties are when you get up and you can see it, like when you get up in the air and you're doing like flipping in a row or twisting in a row,
Yep.
or you're, doing anything that has to do in air, you get disoriented because your brain goes into a different space, and you have to be very focused with your mind. Your mind body connection have to be together. And so when you get the twisties in gymnastics, or like in diving, for instance, or in skating, ice skating, if you get the twisties, you lose that. And then if it happens to you a couple times, your confidence drops, because if you don't have the opportunity to just practice in the gym and kind of regain it, and you're in competition, you really can't keep going. It really can't. It's just not one of those things. It's not like you can go back out on the football field and throw the next pass. It is not the same thing.
You get the yips.
And
most athletes have experienced the yips.
And so just in gymnastics, and I put this out there in terms of like perseverance, in gymnastics, if you persevere right in that moment to pass through the twisties thinking you're going to let them pass, they usually don't, because there's an anxiety piece involved, plus there's a disorientation piece involved, and it could lead to your death.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen more neck falls. I broke my arm and compound fractured it. I mean, I've seen breaks to beat the band on, it's a lot. So, I like to remind people that it's actually one of the most hazardous sports. The balance beam alone is 4 feet high and 4 inches wide. And they're doing back handsprings and back tucks and full twists and leaps and jumps all in combination with no stop. And people are like, she's such a quitter. I'm sorry. No. So now if we go over to Suni Lee, if you watch Suni Lee on the beam this week in her finals, she did a back handspring layout, and then we call it crotch shotted the beam. So did you see it?
No.
Because you didn't watch it.
You just described it.
Okay. So she missed her footing on the last layout step out. So, she was up in the air, and she crotch shotted the beam. She straddled the beam and went off and fell. And she ended up 5th or 6th. 5th and 6th in the individual events, Simone and herself, whatever. They didn't medal in that. But people were criticizing her for being like, I'm sorry. If you know how much effort goes into these gymnastics routines, you practice those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Eventually there's a fall. That happened to be the one. Now she might've done 100 before that with no fall, and there's the one. Mm-hmm. And people are just like, she's, like for Klimt, that she was so imperfect. People have no idea the amount of, I mean, this is that's statistical. You're eventually going to have a fall. And Simone had a fall on the same thing. So, she had fallen beam, which is not typical, but in the worst of moments, that's what happens, because that's what happens. Doesn't mean a person is not persevering or resilient. You jump back up and you finish it. I saw some horrific bar falls on this Olympics. I saw some, Jade Carey flipped out of bounds on floor the first week and like rolled out and off, and it was mind jarring for her.
Yep.
And she persevered. She came back and won gold for the team. So, when people talk about like quitting or having these things, I'm not sure really what they're talking about, except for they're talking out their ass, because they're not gymnasts and they're not, athletes like that. And so it's pretty sad that people have commentaries about that. So I want to go back to Simone and talking about how to apply this like across the board to life. So resiliency and perseverance. If you have perseverance, it shows greater self-esteem. The more perseverance you have, the more your self-esteem goes up. Which comes first? Well, they both help each other out, right? So, and the more resilient you are, I think that it's important, even when you're like a young kid and you're in athleticism and you're doing something, if you have a good set of people around you, a good network of people, and you're not of like what I call the Marta era. My era was Marta and Bella Caroli era, where there wasn't a lot of like positivity around what you did. It was more about like just being a producer and performative. Now there's a lot more of the mental health awareness and just the safety mentally around the sports. And you get that in everything. And I was just telling one of my young football players a couple of weeks ago that every single athlete that's at a higher level, for the most part, has one of me. Like there's an existing sports person that does mental health, mental skill building in every single sport. And so if you look at, and I'm framing out gymnastics and I'll frame out running too, because I was watching it running. If they were doing close-up shots on some of the athletes, they're doing, you can see if you read lips, but you can see them doing right before they go to do their thing. They're talking through their mantras. They're talking through all the affirmations that they do to give them the pump up inside. And a lot of people who, either are uneducated on it or don't believe in it or think it's, weak or whatever to have mental training on these things. They poo-poo it, but they're not at the level. So, but I don't know what the fear is. I do. I'm being more rhetorical, but there's a fear of like, oh, that's, that shows weakness. Well, yeah, but it could have been the thing that, you're still talking about your glory days, not you, but, someone's talking about their glory days of their football years back in 1975. But they never made it to college football and they wanted to, or they never made it to the NFL, or they never made it to the NHL, or they never made it to soccer, or what? Well, why? Because they're oftentimes when I hear about them in my practice and they're talking to me, they're like, they have their regrets and I will hear from many people, like, I wish I had you back then, because the mental training piece is so important to this, and being able to really center yourself and to see how gracious and you have to have grace for yourself as an athlete to be able to make mistakes and to not be perfect and to allow yourself to just be, hey, this is what I am today, because every day is a little different. Every moment's a little different. If you watched the track and field events yesterday, oh, phenomenal. And that's, on any given day, someone could just beat you and you could be the best, but, you persevere and you're at the Olympics. So,
well, at that level, the physical tolerances, physical margins are minuscule. I mean, everybody's physically skilled. The difference is mental. The difference is your mental makeup and mental approach.
Right. And so now, and people ask me, is there a difference between like an Olympic level athlete or an a national like level athlete at any sport? Is there a difference in the mindset? And I always say most athletes you talk to at that level have trained with their mindset. They haven't bypassed that piece. They've had that mindset, and they haven't had coaches who naysay the mindset. If that makes sense. Right. Yeah. So usually there's, I'm very happy to say that over the past 2 decades, I've watched coaches way more inclined to accept my help, have me come in, have me talk to their athletes, or if I'm working with one of their athletes, they'll have good connection with me to talk about it. Whereas before that was, that's your thing, not my thing.
Yeah.
What are you eating? Hold on one second. I had to stick my finger down his throat.
Oh God. Okay.
Rocky's eating something. I'm sorry. He got too quiet and then he's chewing on something. So, but the mental aspects of national level is now trickled down into the amateur recreational sport level. Not as much as I'd like to see it, but it's definitely changed a lot. And I was having a conversation with a football coach of young high schoolers, middle school and high schoolers, which is amazing to me because the middle school practices are just more intense than they ever used to be for football. Remember, it used to be like flag football, but now it's like full on practice. Like all of August is, here we go, 7th grade. I'm like, oh my God, right? Very different than it used to be. I'm still not sure what he's doing, but he's got something. Hold on, please.
I heard him shake it off.
I know, and I don't know what he's eating, but he's got something, and I don't want him to swallow it. Sorry. But the level of acceptability now for okay, we have to have our mind set in, and people talking about the zone, and people talking about everyone who, especially teams, being a team together, not playing as an individual, but being more collective. And I think in the psychology of like collectivism, it's all for all, and instead of the all for one. And so that's a big reason why, like the U.S. gymnastics team for men and women did so well. That's why Brazil's team did so well, because they act as a unit together. And then when they go out on their own, they have their own thing. But I think you see a huge difference now in the way people play.
Haven't you found that team psychology has been waning for a decade and a half now? Seems like people don't understand team concept anymore.
I see.
I think COVID had a lot dug into that a little bit with kids too, but the whole idea, the whole concept of working as a team has just gone by the wayside.
I think so. Because I'm so enmeshed in a lot of teams, it's hard for me to say that that's waning because I see it so much. But if I take a step back and I look at like the country as a whole, societally, I would say it's not up to par with a lot of like certainly the Northeast. We have a lot more team connection that way. I think this like the southeastern, like Florida, Georgia, Alabama, like because they're very collectivistic in their sports, especially like football, hockey, soccer, and even I'm going to go back to gymnastics. All the gymnastics teams in the country are for collegiate are very tight. Women's basketball, same thing.
No, when you get to that level, you have to have that mindset. And I'm just talking.
You're talking kids, like the
kids being raised,
right? So kids being
don't
raised,
understand the team concept all that much.
So yes, okay. So if I take out that and I go right to the kid age and like the pre-high school level, absolutely still a problem. I try to get into those places as much as I can to get people to get me into the coaching. And here's one of the things, and not to knock that coaches are. So the coaches are old school, and by old school I don't mean like old. Hi, buddy. Coaches are old school in the fact that they're coming from, if we take like football, soccer, they were football players, they were soccer players, they're coming in to help coach their kid, and they go with what they know. And not all, but a vast majority of coaches that I end up going in and seeing when I get called in are very focused on what they knew and how they coach, and they don't focus on I call it the appropriate corrective emotional experience for a kid. When you're coming in as a kid into a sport and you tell a kid, kick harder, run faster. Kathy's on right now, so she could probably talk about like skating and hi Kathy, love you. And how spin faster, like on the ice, like the generic commentaries that coaches make at a youth level are still the same as I used to hear 25 years ago. And my job often is to come and say, you have to be more specific. And coaches oftentimes don't know what even that means to be more specific. So like I'll say, what does running faster, like on a track team? They'll be like, run faster. Okay, tell them one or two things of how it is to run faster. And what I find is a lot of times the coaches actually don't know how to tell them how to run faster. Yeah. So I end up saying, I give them examples, try to lead them to the answer, because usually I know the answer given. Now I know everything about sports except for curling. Right. So I know enough. I don't know everything, but I know enough about each sport enough to be like, okay, is it an arm drive? Do we have a core weakness issue? Do we need to do core exercise and conditioning? Do we need, like I'm working with a kid right now on he's a quarterback, and he's a youth quarterback, and he's really good. And he comes from a family of football and the whole thing. And he's working with a throwing coach, but they're not working on his core. And he's overthrowing. So he's throwing his elbow out because he's overusing his arm versus where does a throw come from as a quarterback? The core. So we're working on the 3-step back and then having conditioning skills to make the obliques and the whole side. Now people are like, well, how's that psychological? Why? Well, because I do the integrative piece and I have the sport background, I'm able to put those pieces together, and then it builds the kid's self-esteem to be able to then throw. But what's happening at the coaching level is it's just throw harder. Yeah. He's getting the message, throw. That doesn't help. So what I'm seeing is what you were saying is the messaging is still that, well, I was just do it faster, do it better. Whatever,
I was speaking more basic. You get raised in the house and you get out of the house and you go into the school system, right? And you feel kind of isolated. And for me anyway, I craved being parts of teams, because that was an environment and a community, and it was supportive, and it was like just earning your way on was self-fulfilling in that regard. And then when you're on the team, being part of a team meant you had a group that you were together as part of a team. I don't think kids seek that out now. In fact, I think they look down on it. They say, why would I want to do that?
Well, I think the whole team thing, yes. So there's a couple things. In the era that we were raised, and people that are listening can jump in on this. In the era that we were raised, first of all, team sports weren't a thing. Like gymnastics for me wasn't team unless you were at the national level or world championship level. Then we did the team competitions. It was always individual. But for me, I wanted to be on the soccer team. We didn't have a soccer team because my high school at the time that I was very short-lived at, because I did my whole schooling differently than most people because I was on the gymnastics team, but they didn't have it because girls weren't supposed to have a team. Like I was still in that whole era of girls didn't play sports like that. They didn't have a team. Oh, you could play field hockey, the traditional female sports, or you could do those kinds of things as you got patted on the ass or on the head as you got, told no, right? But I think collectively now, I think here's what I not research based. I see kids who were in team sports came from families or parents that were in team sports more often than not.
Yep.
And kids who never had that are either not in sports at all, or if they are, they're individual but short-lived.
Yeah, and I think
and the tap out age is around 13, 14, and it has not changed. That's actually research statistic is the 13, 14-year-old age is the tap out for a sport, either to continue or not, because kid will be like, I'd rather do social things. I'd rather do something else.
And I think that percentage is declining as we go. The percentage of parents who are in team sports. And you didn't have to get even to the high school level. You grew up in middle school and you're on teams.
Right. And I think so. I don't know up where you live, but in my area, because I have like a six town area that I sort of cover with sports. I mean, I'm constantly pushing I talk to the school systems, I talk to the high schools, I talk about like team building, team leadership. I get called in sometimes to talk to the youth, like the 7th and 8th graders or the 9th, 10th, 11th, like the JV and the varsity, and how to be leaders, and they're more invested in that. But I had to go to them and say, you guys need this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times that they're not looking out for it. Now I can say that if you go down south, and this is very common down south, that is not a thing. It's down south, it's more team related, team relatable. I do believe, though, it's more heavily relatable around male sports than female, unfortunately. So we really need more of a push towards female sports because they just don't encourage it in the same way. I won't say they don't encourage it, it's just not in the same way. Cheerleading, but cheerleading's changed. Like I was never going to be a cheerleader because my whole theory about cheerleading back in the day was unless I was going to be a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, which is a whole different thing, which now I watch that show and go, oh my God, I'm so glad, because I like food and I like to not be that skinny, even though I like to be thinner, but I don't want to have someone looking at me and saying, there was a little jiggle when you did that little star, dance. I'm like, oh my God. Right. But cheerleading back in my day, now it's a team sport and it's amazing because it's acrobatics with gymnastics with dance, and it's a lot of technicality and it's pretty amazing. But back in my day, it was going out and cheering for boys. And my dad, I'll just say my dad always said, the day you go out and cheer for a group of boys, it better be for the fact that they're coming out and cheering for you. And then it never happened. So he was like, to my point, now I'm like, oh, I'm all in for cheerleading as a sport because it's a great sport. And it isn't just pom pom, rah rah, and clap your hands for teams for boys. And I don't believe
I'm not making snacks for the football team, putting them in the locker.
Right. And then exactly. And I think that that's changed huge in this country, and I'm all for that because that's a team, and it's co-ed. Many of the teams are co-ed, and I think that's a great combo sport for people.
But that lack of team association just spills over into society in general, into the workplace, into family life, into everything. It's just like it's on the decline, and it's a problem.
Right. And I do think that I think the pandemic hurt that a lot because the increased the isolation and the lack of kids wanting to do that. And also in a weird way, I don't know what the stats are on this, but I've read some things in some of the articles that have come out in like whatever places that because of the pandemic and because of the isolation, the colleges aren't requiring you to have a sport necessarily. It's not that they required it, but when you did your ComApp that just opened up, when you applied, it's usually SAT gone now for the most part, MAT gone now for the most part, right? You really don't need them from a lot of the schools. And then you do need community service, which for some places 20 hours, some it's 200. So I wish it would just be globally like a lot. Everyone should be doing that. And then it used to be you really would get into a better school or have a better chance if you were well-rounded and had like a job and you played a sport and you had good grades. Now the whole sport thing is not a thing anymore. But if you had a group, if like if you were in the band, or if you were in the drama group, or if you were in the math club, or you were in the Chinese club, or whatever you were taking, those counted. And I see because I help kids every year do their ComApps, right, and help kids for college, and I'm like, we have a huge gap here. We what are we doing? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, you need to find a community service job, because you have no competition against like 500 million other kids that are out there getting that spot. And that will be the differentiation. But the team sport thing is not on, it's valued because if it's there, it'll set you apart, but that's not as emphasized. And that's unfortunate, because that's the same thing as you go to college. And when I was in college, you could get an intramural, anything, you could have any sport and it was on campus and whatever. Now it's, well, you can, there's only certain ones on campuses, and then it's club. And so it's not as valued anymore, or as much anymore to play. You have to go out and find it off site and do club, which most colleges, the college I went to for my undergrad, both where I started and then where I finished, they have a lot of teams on, but then they're all club off. And, and that's too bad, because I think they miss a lot. But
it's funny, because that's what's needed, because high school sports have got so elite now that once you get into high school, it's hard to experience the whole team concept, because there aren't a lot of opportunities to do it.
Right.
And the kids who are on high school teams are pre-qualified, because they're already indoctrinated into this. They're already buying into the team concept and bettering themselves.
And that's how they, how it used to be, like you're going to a top 10 Atlantic school, or you're going to, like, it used to be based on the academics and in the sport. Now they're talking about it as, I don't hear that as much anymore. It's like, I don't, kids, even if they're not playing a sport, they'll come and say, I'm not going to a D1 school. And I'm like, you don't even play a sport. They're like, right. So I'm not going to pick a D1. I'm going to go to like a D2, D3, because it'll be easier for me to get in. That's the mindset of the teenagers I'm seeing now, that even when they don't play a sport, because they know. And I'm like, no, we don't sell ourselves short. You can still apply. Don't worry about it being D1 and you didn't do a sport. You have these other things. But that's what is now in kids' heads. Like, well, I didn't play a sport. I don't have a varsity letter. I didn't do that, so I can't get in there. I'm like, no, that's not true. But that's what's now in the minds. And I think that they get that from home. They get that from the social media messages. They don't get that from the colleges, because the colleges are not saying that.
Right.
And I do think that, unfortunately, I think a lot of guidance counselors and counselors are misguiding their students, and they give them a lot of misinformation about that. I correct a lot of information on that. And when I do that, I'm like, go to the website of said college and look up the stats and go on a tour or give them a call, and you'll find out. And 90% of the time, the person comes back and says, oh, this is true. And this is what you're right. It's fine. But they have this mindset, because they didn't play a high school sport team or that they're not going to get into a D1 or a D2. They have to go, like lower. And that's, not lower academically, but they just have to go to a lower level sport playing school, because they didn't have the sport. And that's sad, because you don't have to have that. But it's great to have it in life, because we've talked about this a lot. Team sports, or athleticism, and being in a sport, whether it's team or not, as long as you're around a group of people and you're training towards a goal of, like, you're bettering yourself. It doesn't mean that, you're going to win everything, but it's about bettering yourself. You learn leadership skills, you learn self-esteem, you build self-confidence, you build friendships, you build social skills.
Deal with adversity.
You have adversity, failures, opportunities, building successes. That builds your perseverance and resiliency to be a Simone Biles, to be someone like Suni Lee, who, by the way, had kidney disease and was bloated like a balloon for the last year of her life before she got back into the Olympics, and didn't think she'd ever do gymnastics again. Talk about a person who persevered, right? You have stories like that all over the place. And if you don't have that background coming up through in your youth and where they came from, you won't be a person that will do that. You would fold in the towel and, like, close up shop and say, I'm done. I can't do it. I can't. Right. Because you don't know how to try, because you don't have that inner fortitude to be able to succeed. And it's not that child doesn't have the potential, but you have to foster the potential. And where do you foster it? Because, classrooms struggle sometimes because they do. And team sports are where you find it, or sports in general, even if you're an individual, because I didn't do team, but I did individual. But I was around a team all the time. I was with the team all the time. And it builds all those things in
shared
you.
experience.
It's a shared experience, and it's all those things, and it builds your character, and it builds you to have a competitive spirit that puts you through the hoops. I just happened to grow up in an era of coaching that was crazy, and most of the coaching is not like that now. I was the Russian Romanian coaching system in my background, and it was right. It was
different style.
It was a very different style, and I don't think that that's a healthy style. I would never want to. And there's still those around. There are some around here. I know there's one place. Whenever I go into one of the gymnastics schools, I cringe because I hear that she's a famous coach and judge in the world of gymnastics, and she's local to here.
Is she a Saturday Night Live character?
Is she what?
Is she a Saturday Night Live character? Stereotypical Romanian coach.
She is, and I cringe. And she literally has zero respect for anything I say, and I have zero respect for anything she says. And we have met at the middle to go, we just don't respect each other's opinions on how to coach. And she loses kids all the time because of her style out of the gym. And I've told her, and she's like, I don't care. I'm like, okay, well, there goes another one.
Yeah.
And another one bites the dust. And she's like, for every one of those, there's another one that will be better. I'm like, all right. So, and
that's the least secure fit to American society.
Right.
That style of coaching.
Right. And that's the thing. And I've tried to talk to her about that. Her husband actually buys into everything I'm saying, but he loses this battle every day.
Yeah.
So, and it's weird because on the outside of the gym, totally different person. She respects me. I respect her. But when it comes to this, it's like, nope. And they don't produce the gymnasts that they used to in the past. Since the past Olympics, they've lost their spot in being able to put girls up on the podium or get them there, because I think it's mostly because we're coaching. And it's that degradation and belittling and taking away from a person's resiliency. You have youth, I'm talking like 11, 12, 13-year-old girls and boys trying to be the next whoever. And she just sucks. She's a soul sucker.
Well, kids are going to wear on that. They're not going to last long with that. And then parents nowadays aren't going to push that.
Yeah.
To the extent that obviously your parents did.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think some do, but not to the extent.
Not to the same extent.
No. And I have to say that my parents were invested in it differently, because they owned a gym. They owned it. They lived it. They breathed it. I was their meal ticket. I'm sure that if they're listening, I'm sure if they wanted to say something about that, they would deny that. But that's what it was. And that's what it is for a lot of old school stuff. And I wasn't the meal ticket.
That phenomenon still exists, where parents are pushing kids into the athletic endeavors deeper than the kid necessarily wants to go. Yeah.
Right. Well, and you've heard Michelle talk about it, Michelle Michelizzi, when she's been on with me. Oh, we should have her on soon. But she's talked about my experience. She talks about my experience better than I can talk about my experience, because she was an outsider watching it. And I've had such great insight after she and I have reconnected over the past couple of years, talking about her watching me climb the ladder to being on the national team and how hard it was for me. And because I don't talk about it a lot, but when she talks about it, I get a very visceral reaction, because she brings back things that I don't think about, because I've beautifully blocked them out of my head. But when she talks about it, I'm always like, I get that yucky. Now I remember what that was like. But she's always so gracious, and she's always like, you were this thing that they just didn't appreciate. And it was hard because of that. And then I had Marta and Bella Caroli on top of it. For people that don't know who Marta and Bella Caroli are, they were the coaches for Mary Lou Retton here in this country, and a whole bunch of famous gymnasts. But they were my coaches, and they defected from Romania, and they were Nadia Comaneci's coach from Romania. And when they defected to my home, literally got off the plane and came right to my house.
Oh, wow.
And lived with my family and myself, and immediately started my Romanian years of training.
All right.
So I am of the Marta and Bella era, and Geza Pozar, who was a choreographer who came with them. He also defected and came over. So, but yes, so I had a very entertaining early childhood and gymnastics with the Marta era, and now it's not. So you don't see it quite the same way,
right?
As people don't see it, but people still have that image that gymnastics is still like that. But if it was, we wouldn't have a 27 and 32-year-old and other higher aged female gymnasts, because women typically tap out early, late 18, 19, 20, or early 20s. And now we've got, Simone's even talking about possibly coming back in 4 more years. I don't know if she will, but that's pretty amazing. It's hard to keep your body going in that direction when you're, it's perseverance and resiliency, but there's also a level of like, hey, I can still go out and do almost all the things that I used to be able to do, but the next day comes at a cost.
Yeah, right.
Right. And I also see stars when I go upside down now. So
yeah. Plus that's 4 years of work.
It's another 4 years and
devotion
and I think
time and effort.
And I think that people talk about resiliency, and people say, oh, what's gymnastics, and people call it not a real sport or whatever. I just will put out there that the schedule for training at that level is 5 a.m. You wake 4:45. You wake up. You have a very quick breakfast, no shower, because there's no need, because you go right to the gym. You're at the gym by like 5:15. This was mine when I was doing it out in Oregon, 5:15. And then you train till 8:30 in the morning. If it was the school year, you went from the gym, and if you were allowed to go to school that day, you went from like 8:30 till about 11:30. You came back, you had a really fast lunch, you had conditioning from 12:30. I will never forget this schedule because it's so ingrained. From 12:30 to 2. Then you got to go home, which was, we lived in the team house, so all of us lived together. We went home, and we'd have, if I don't even remember if we ate, who knows. We did homework if we had any, which I don't even remember if we did, because I don't remember being in school very often. But we did have homework, but it was like, we were tutored all the time. So it was different. And then we were back in the gym for like 3:30, and we worked out till 8. We came home, dinner was on the table from the team coaches that lived in the house. And then we took showers and whatever. And then we were in bed by like 11, and we started all over again every day except for one. And on the days that we didn't have that, we were doing something that was related to biking some obscene amount, which is why I don't bike anymore, some obscene amount of miles, or going for long hikes, which thank God I still love that, because that wasn't a problem, or doing like crazy swimming, like nothing. It was nothing fun.
Yeah.
But this was that era, and it's not as bad now. The schedule, certainly, if you listen to Suni Lee or Simone or some of the swimmers that were talking about their schedule and stuff, the schedule when you're training at this level to go to the Olympics is this way. But it's like that for 4 years straight. It's not just leading up to the Olympics. That's right. How basically from the time I was around 6 or 7 years old, all the way up until I retired, that's what my schedule was. Always.
Yeah.
So when people say, oh, you were a gymnast. Oh, yeah. Yes. And it takes a lot of perseverance and resiliency to be at any level that's going to go to college at that in a sport, and also be able to build your self-esteem up, to take the whacks and the cracks from all the stuff around you, to be able to just keep going, because it's way easier actually to quit, and people don't. And I think there needs to be a greater appreciation for people who stick to itness.
Yeah.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Lou, what do you think, Mr. I would say Bruins, but you're hockey's the same way.
Yeah. Well, hockey. Well, all athletics at this point, if you're going to go Division I,
right.
Certainly,
right,
is all this type of devotion, and you have to put into it, right?
Yes.
And we've seen this on the grand scale, on the national scale. Like Tiger, I kept thinking of Tiger's dad, and there's the movie out with Serena and
Venus.
Yeah, her father. Amazing how well adjusted those two are.
Yes.
seemingly anyway on the
It is.
outside,
And so and that's the other thing
because
is
Tiger wasn't.
no. Tiger,
And
well,
we've seen it in Greg Jeffries in baseball and Ryan Leaf in football. And
well, and I think that's where, so you have, that's, so I always talk to people about, like, you have to have a yummy person. And that's the emotional yummy person, the person that provides the balance in those things. And a lot of times you get blocked as a student athlete, as a child athlete, your coaches don't allow you to have that yummy person because they are seen as a threat to your performance.
Yep.
And I was blocked. I had a yummy person, thank God, but I was blocked a lot from that yummy person because she had a voice of reason, and they didn't like that voice of reason. That, like, hers was like, she's got to have time off, she's got to have, be a kid, stop pushing her to this level, she's going to tap out. But Tiger Woods did not. I mean, that's why you see all the issues that he's had, and there's so many athletes that have that problem. We'll just say that there's a parental push.
Like 80% of all Division I athletes.
There's a parental push, and I always love it when parents come into my office when I know that there's this issue going on. Parents will come in and say, "It's not me." They don't even. I haven't said anything yet. They go, "It's not me. They do this on their own. I just don't understand how they're just so upset and so." I'm like, but then they disavow, like, it's not me. Mm-hmm. As soon as a parent says it's not me, I'm like, mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes, it is. In my head, as a clinician, I obviously go through all the things, but
because what they know is the child is blaming them.
Well,
the child feels the pressure, and they don't want to be attached to the pressure.
Right, and well, usually kids will protect their parent, and they'll protect their coach about, like, oh, it's me. But the more I push in a healthy way, like, I'll be like, oh, so what does it look like, and get them settled into, like, a trusting relationship. Then it comes out that those things, and then it gives me an easier way I don't ever go in and try to infiltrate from the backside with the parents, because it usually doesn't move them. But what I do is I teach the child or the youth athlete how to manage the pressure of parent / coach / local paparazzi, when they're local high-end athletes, coming up the ranks. Like, I start building their resiliency around that, because I'm the paid yummy person, essentially, to do that, so that there's never a divide between, well, it's anybody's blame or anyone's fault. It's just the fact that, back off your pressure. Like, we have to, like, do something good about this. But kids will tap out. Kids will get hurt. Kids will get hurt on purpose, or they'll throw a game. The tactics that come out, and parents are just like, I don't know what happened. And I'm like, oh, I do. And I get the kid behind closed doors. I'm like, so you threw the game, huh? And they're like, how'd you know that? And I'm like, I watched. And they're like, you're not gonna tell my parents. And that, it's like, and no, I'm not saying a word, but we need to work on, like, do you still want to do the sport? Why are you doing the sport? Do you love the sport?
There? That's just so mind blowing.
Because they're not doing it for themselves. They've lost it. They're doing it for the parent. Or
how does it get for the parent? How do you lose sight of that? It's your child. How do you push them to the point where they're going to throw a game to get out from under your thumb?
Because here's the concept that I always teach. I am you, you are me, we are one. That's the parent mindset. I am you, you are me, we are one. Instead of it, I am me, you are you, and we are totally separate people, and you do you, and I'm going to watch and clap and be. No, it's a psychological phenomenon of being conjoined of, and it's enmeshed, and it's codependent in a lot of ways, built by the parent of, I am me, you are you, but we are one. I am you. And I just live through you. I want this. This is
classic. Your success means I was a good athlete,
and your success is also, I'm a good parent.
Yeah, and I'm a good parent.
Right, and they go hand in hand, and I know it really well. been there, done that. Not as the parent, but as the athlete, and it's hard because it messes with your head. It's a real mind F. I didn't want to say the word.
Yep.
Because it's not a nice word.
Success is your kid is happy and healthy.
Well,
that's success.
Well, you would think,
as
right?
A parent.
You would think that. Well, all parents will say that, but then there's this dark side. That that people think that they can't see, that isn't transparent. But that's why people have people like me, so that I can be like, oh, so I'll resilient up your kid, but you're going to go off the wayside a little bit.
It's going to cost you.
It's well, and they usually don't know. They're like, oh, my kid's doing so much better. I'm like, right, because they've learned how to block you out.
Yeah.
Right. And I also try to teach parents, just as a last thing, I also try to teach parents that if you are a coach, you're only a coach on the field. You're a parent at home, and you're blurring the line. Stop blurring the line.
Yeah.
What did Miss Kathy say? When the kid athlete is the meal ticket, athlete success plus coach success. Yes. Kathy and I've had many conversations about this, and that is exactly true.
Even if that's the scholarship formula, saving money as opposed to making money. You got to get a scholarship. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because, and also, and parents all have the dream, and Kathy would talk about this too, because she works in ice skating. It's about, people all think their kid's going to the Olympics or to make it to some high level that's going to make money, and they're all going to have a Kellogg's box, and they're all going to be on the front. They're going to be on, the next Verizon commercial. It's like, okay, we'd all love that, but it's not the way it works. But exactly what she said. And that was what I was saying. Like, I was the meal ticket. That athlete success and coach equals coach success equals money.
Yeah.
And yes. And it's when it's your parents, it's like, ooh. So I can't
It's like breeding horses.
Oh, I can't wait for the backlash on this one.
Yeah. Well,
truth is truth. Facts are facts.
It's like breeding horses. If your horse wins races, you get more money.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And your next person's here. He's coughing, so hopefully he's not coughing to death in the side. Thanks, Ron. Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. So all right. So I'm getting ready to wrap up the show, and thank you for joining and talking about resiliency. And it was no tips this week other than just to talk about it, but hopefully you'll hear from me next week from some really cool place. And if not, well, then you'll catch me the week after and I'll tell you all about it. But I will be,
we're going to try.
We are going to try, and we're going to see. So you guys have a fantastic week, and I will see you later.